Hi, I'm Andy Stobart from Bridgestone Motorsport. Bridgestone is the official tyre supplier to the FIA Formula 1 World Championship. That means all the cars in Formula 1, whether it be Lotus Racing, Ferrari, McLaren, anyone else, they are all on Bridgestone Potenza tyres. So Bridgestone bring 2,000 tyres to every Grand Prix. Those 2,000 tyres are distributed between the teams according to the regulations. Regulations stipulate that each driver gets 11 sets of dry tyres. That's the dry tyre like this, which is a slick racing tyre. And those are split between 6 sets of the prime tyre, that's the harder rubber compound we bring to a race, and 5 sets of the option. Bridgestone make 4 different compounds of dry tyres to last the season, called hard, medium, soft and super soft. Between those we have to bring 2 to each Grand Prix weekend. What we try and do is bring a gapped allocation, so that means we might bring the hard and the soft, for instance, or the medium and the super soft. What we did do once this year in 2010 is bring a bigger gap, so we had the hard and the super soft just to see what it did and see how teams react to that. During the course of the race, the teams have to make use, each driver has to make use of both compounds of dry tyre. That means they have to understand the qualities of the tyres, work out and calculate which will be the best way to use these 2 tyres, and hopefully, get a good result. So there's many things we look at when we decide which tyres we're bringing. We have to look at the actual layout of the circuit, how many slow speed corners, how many fast straights it has, the roughness of the surface. And we look at the roughness of the surface, we look at 2 things. We look at macro and micro. Macro roughness is how closely, if you look at a tarmac road, how closely the actual stones are spaced. The micro roughness is how rough the actual stones themselves are. So we have a scanning device that goes around, scans the track, we analyse this, and it all affects how the tyre actually works. A tyre grip comes from many things. There's a chemical bonding between the tyre itself and the track, and that's why we see over a Grand Prix weekend as rubber is laid, so the chemical reaction between the tyre and the rubber already laid on the track is much better. It's far stickier, the tyre works better. That's why we see things like at the beginning of a Grand Prix weekend, the tyres don't grip as well. There's not as much rubber down. If we're at a street course like a Monaco or a Canada or a Valencia, quite often it's quite a dirty track to start. The tyre is sliding around. You get this thing called graining, which is where the rubber pushes over the surface of the tyre. But during the course of the weekend, and you usually hear the racing drivers say, there's quite often complaints at the beginning of the weekend, I've got no grip, I've got graining, the car's sliding, it's moving around. But during the course of the weekend and then the race itself, as long as the weather conditions have been suitable, it's a lot better. So here we have quite an interesting tyre. This is a wind tunnel tyre. Bridgestone produced these for the teams so that they can go testing in the wind tunnel where they don't use full-size cars. They do on occasion, but most of the development is based on 50% or 60% models of the cars. And understanding how the tyre works has a great effect on the aerodynamics of the car. If you think of looking at the car front on, you've got 2 of these bad boys very prominent in the airflow, so how the air comes off the front wing, it hits this big object here. And the tyre shape is something over which teams have no influence. It's the only part on the car that they can't refine and define and change and sculpt, apart from perhaps the driver. They can't change the driver shape too much. The tyre, obviously, it points straight ahead, but also you're turning as well when you're going around corners. That has a big influence. And the tyre shape as well. A lot of aerodynamic load pushes down on the tyres and the tyre compresses. So that has a very big effect of the air going behind the tyre. So understanding how this tyre changes shape and moves, how its dynamic shape, is very important for the airflow, very important to understand it developing the cars. Okay, at the end of a race weekend, all the tyres are brought back to Bridgestone. We strip them from the wheel rims. The wheel rims are the team's domain and the wheel rims go back to the teams. And some of the tyres, we take samples of them, which are sent back to Japan for microscopic analysis to understand exactly how the compound's been working over that particular race weekend. And the majority of the tyres are then sent to be used as fuel, so we're basically reclaiming the energy that's gone into producing the tyres for other purposes. So the tyres do get very hot when they're used. I mean, you could almost fry an egg on it. It wouldn't taste very good. over 80 degrees or even higher than that of temperature. So it is a very hot thing. That's why you do see when the cars come back in, the mechanics do wear gloves whenever they handle it, because it does get very hot. That's when it's at its stickiest, that's when it works best on the track. So Bridgestone are leaving Formula One. 2010 will be our final season. Our company has decided that it is time to now go and look at new emerging technologies and find new challenges. It's been 14 years we've been in the Formula One arena. We've learnt a lot. The Bridgestone brand, the name, has been pushed far and wide through our participation in Formula One. And we've learnt and achieved as much as we feel we can at this stage. So now we're off to look for new challenges and see what the future brings. The tyres are made for racing. It's part of racing at the end of the day. If we were precious about the tyres and wanted them in a museum, we'd be in a very different business. Bridgestone are in Formula One to show their performance, to show the power of their products, which is something we've done very well for the past 14 years.